Related to tables, we have tabs. Firstly, some do's and don'ts when working with tabs. Use them rather than multiple spaces if you want to move your text to a specified position on the line. Even if you are using a right tab or a centered tab or even a decimal tab, the alignment of the text should be left aligned. Align the tabs panel with the top of your frame. Here's what I mean by that. Press Command-Shift-T to bring up the tabs panel. Now, ideally what you want to have happen is for the ruler to align to the text frame. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's not doing it at the moment. But if I switch to a 100% view size by pressing Command 1 and then click on the magnet, you see that it now does align to the width of a specific column. So those are the things you should do, but what you shouldn't do is use multiple consecutive tabs. You only ever need one. And if you've got a complex table, don't use tabs. Use a table. And definitely don't use tabs to indent the first line of a paragraph. For that, of course, you want a first line indent. And an absolute no-no, do not be tempted to use tabs to force a line break. It's going to come back and cause all sorts of problems if you do that. I'm going to turn on my guides by pressing W, and you can see, because I have my hidden characters shown, that we see the invisible character for a tab in front of each of these lines of text. So here I have the 4 types, or 4 of the 5 types of tab. And the thing is that the tab position is the same for each of them. Let's go to a 100% view, Command-Shift-T, and you can see I've got the tab right there at 300 points. A left-aligned tab. You can see we have these different flavors of tab. Then if I move down to the next one, it's a center tab, and then a right, and then a decimal tab. Now, when you use a decimal tab, you align on a specific character. Unless you specify otherwise, that is going to be a period or full stop. But you can align on any character. Now, there is a 5th kind of tab, and that is a right indent tab, and that can be very useful. And I'm using an example down here where on my page folio, for example, I want to have the magazine title on the left and then the month of the publication all the way over on the right. So rather than set that at a specified position numerically, I can just press Shift Tab and it will move it all the way to the right edge of the frame. Along with tabs, we have dot leaders. And here are a couple of examples. On the left, not so good. On the right, better. What's the difference? Well, on the left, the dot leaders are differing sizes and there's differing spaces between them because of that. So it's a different size dot leader applied to the first level head than to the second level head. And that just seems visually inconsistent. Also, on the left, the page numbers are bigger. So when we track down the right-hand edge of the page, that's a bit visually disruptive. And then the third point is that if we look at the hidden character, it's slightly different on the left to how it is on the right. On the left, there is a right tab set to this position. And that means that if the width of the text frame changes, the tab stays where it is. Whereas on the right, I'm using a right indent tab so that if I change the width of the text frame, the position of the numbers and dot leaders will adjust accordingly. Now this relates to how we set up a table of contents, and I'm not going to go through with the execution of the table of contents, but I just want to point out where these options are. So if I come to table of contents, you'll need to click on more options if you don't see these options. And what I'm making sure here is that I have created a character style that gets applied to the page numbers, which I want after the entries. And I've created another character style called dot leader, which gets applied to the space between the entry and the number. And to separate the entry and the number, I need to specify a tab. Now, if I put in the regular code for a tab, a caret T, that's going to require me to set the position of the tab. But instead, I can put in a right indent tab, and that's going to force the text out to the right-hand edge of the frame, wherever that right-hand edge is. So some tips there for using dot leaders in a table of contents. Now you can also use dot leaders to create an address form, for example. So here I am going to press Shift Tab after name, address, and city. It's not going to work after city, so that just needs to be a tab rather than a Shift Tab. And the same after separating state and zip. So now, having done that, I will select that text. I'll press Command 1 to go to a 100% view size. Command Shift T to bring up my tab ruler. And I can now put my tab at any position. So I'm now going to position my tab according to where I want the state to go, because for the name and address, that doesn't matter. It's just going to go to the right-hand edge because I used a right indent tab. And then I'll select that tab stop, and in the leader character field, I'll type in Shift _. And then to update the view, I'll actually press the tab key. And it might look like we have a broken line. I'll address that in a moment, but for now, I need to just select the last line only. And for that second tab stop, I need to insert another one on the tab ruler to where I want that to go. And then that will also need to get the leader character. And then I need a third tab stop, and the third one can just be a right indent tab, taking it all the way to the right-hand edge. So if we zoom in on this, yes, indeed, it seems that the line is broken. Well, what we can do is we can make a character style. I'll call it tighter. I'll come to the basic character format, so I'll make sure that there's nothing declared there except the tracking. I'll make that -75. So now I can select that line and apply that tighter character style to it so that we close up any gaps that there might be in that line.